What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 39 of An Untold Narrative. Today, we feature somebody that I actually know for once. It's not a guest that I've met on Clubhouse or TikTok or somebody that I actually haven't met in real life because I've met Joey. So we have Joey Khamis on episode 39. Joey, what's up?
How's it going, man?
Good, good. I'm happy to have you.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. So where are you currently? And then kind of maybe talk about just where you come from.
I'm living in Boston right now. I'm originally from Indiana, and I pretty much lived in Indiana like my entire life, so up until now.
I know nothing about Indiana, and so maybe just like talk about like what the lifestyle out there is, because it's like, is it considered the Midwest?
Indiana is the Midwest, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how to like describe it other than like I just grew up in like the like suburbs just outside of the city of Indianapolis, but outside of like that kind of area, if you just keep driving, it's just straight up just like cornfields and farms and stuff, but like occasional small towns here and there and stuff. But outside of like that, this like the city and then the suburbs, it's like literally straight up corn.
So that's exactly what was ingrained in this brain, and I'm happy now that I have an authenticator.
Yeah.
Cool. So maybe talk about, or I guess I didn't say even in the intro, but like you're a footwear designer by trade. We'll get into the heavy dose of gravity sketch that you've been injecting into the universe later on, but that's kind of your bread and butter today. But how did you in the suburbs of Indiana, like how did you end up finding your creative path, a passion for design? Did you go to, did you practice any of that in high school? And then, kind of where'd you go to college?
Yeah. So I've always like done a whole bunch of drawing, painting, whatever kind of creative, like art kind of stuff ever since I was like a kid, just like always drawing stuff, taking like, the like posters out of sports magazines and like tracing over them and like kind of redrawing them. And then later just, learning how to draw by myself by like looking over at the drawing or the photo and drawing it myself. My mom's was a graphic designer, and she's like really good, like just like really talented in like art and stuff like that in general. So like definitely get it from her. So like, yeah, just always doing art stuff, did every single art class that I could fit into my like high school schedules. So like I was always good friends with the art teacher, and she was the best. Shout out Miss Cooper. Yeah, I don't know. And then like after like high school, I was going into college, and I was like good at like the art stuff for sure, but like didn't know what to do with it. And was like also pretty decent at like math and whatever. So I was like, oh, I'll just go to like, when you're in Indiana, it's like the main schools that are like in state are like, you go to Indiana University or like Purdue or like Ball State or something. It's like pretty much my whole high school. Like if you went to college, you went to one of those three. So I went to Purdue, and they're like an engineering school, but I also knew they had an industrial design program. And so I was still like kind of on the fence of which I wanted to do. So I did like a split studies that first year to kind of figure it out. And then as soon as I saw like the industrial design, like the little like tiny little part of the campus that it was on, it's like all the senior projects, and then like they have their senior portfolios out and stuff, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. It's like design, but it's like an art kind of, but it's like a practical thing that like you can see like all the companies out there, like all these sponsored projects, so you're like, oh, this is like legit. So that's how I got into industrial design. And then the footwear stuff didn't come later until like sophomore year, when like I found out about the Pencil like Footwear Design Academy.
But you mentioned that you had an inkling of industrial design even before you went to college. Like, how did you discover that? Because I find anyone who's taken industrial design kind of stumbles into it or finds out about it in a really weird way. But maybe it's from your mom's side who was in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if she even knew of industrial design as a career, and I didn't really. I remember I did a project like in school. They make you like in like a career path like class that you take or whatever. They're like, pick a career that you're interested in, do like a short project on it so you can like learn more. And I think I did industrial design. It was something I did like my junior year. And so I'd seen it like come up as like a major. And the fact that it just had like design in it, I was like, okay, well, I know I want to do something design. Then I, just went on the school's website and saw like a sampling of like types of projects, but I didn't still get like the full scope of what, like seeing like the studio and the design studio and all that stuff. So I kind of knew what it was and was like, okay, well, this is, if the engineering thing doesn't work out, which it did not, I was like going to go into the design stuff.
So I have a similar path, dude. I took a semester of civil engineering my freshman year and I freaking hated it.
Yeah. I took a few like engineering classes because I wasn't technically in the major. So I was just taking a few classes and like, I was like, oh yeah, math was like fun for me because I got it, but like only to a certain point, and then like a whole bunch of weird stuff gets in it. I'm like, I hate it so much. And then it was just like all the other stuff about it. It just gets like, it just got way too complicated. And I was like, I'm not into this.
Totally. So you mentioned you did name drop pencil there your sophomore year, maybe your junior year. Did you actually end up taking the pencil course?
I ended up taking one pencil course, but that wasn't like, that wasn't like way later until after I graduated, but I did. So the way I found out about pencil was one of my TAs had just sent like an email out to people. They'll send out like emails to us like, oh, here's a design contest you should enter. And it's usually some sort of like product design related thing, or some company sponsors a contest. And then it was the pencil shoe design, like the World Sneaker Championships.
Right.
That they did. I don't know if they still do it anymore, but they do it on Instagram. And it was like, you literally just send in like a lateral sketch of the shoe. You get picked or you don't get picked into like the top 64. And then it's like a March Madness bracket style there. People vote for it and you have to like use Instagram to promote it. And so I just got that email from the professor and I was like, oh, I think I had kind of seen like a footwear project that one of the seniors had done at the time. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then the contest came and I was like, I'll just draw a shoe and send it in. And I got picked in the contest, so that was cool. And
How
then
far did you make it?
What's that?
How far did you make it?
The first year, I just made it to the contest, the top 64. And like, I was getting all my friends and stuff to like vote for it on like sending the link out on Twitter. And I didn't have a design Instagram account at that point, and that's kind of what like started it.
Yeah.
'Cause I had to like post it to get votes and stuff. Because like I went up against, I remember it was I don't know if you probably know him from Instagram, Tommy Olson or something like that. Yeah. So I was like,
yeah, he's talented.
He was the guy I was going up against. And at the time he had already had like 30,000 followers or something crazy on Instagram for his like designs. And I was like,
yeah, that's tough.
All right, well, I'm going to lose this year, but let's just wait for next year. But so I was like, oh, I got to like build an Instagram account and like promote it and stuff. So yeah. So first year I got to like top 64. The next year I did it, made to top 32. Year after that, made top 16. And then after that, I just got like a job and stuff, so I didn't really need it.
well, ladies and gentlemen, there we go. We have the progression of 64, 32, 16, and job.
Yeah, I still wanted to win it though, man. It was cool because they like if you win, they would
they make your shoe.
Yeah, they make your shoe and like sell like a limited run with like Foot Locker and stuff, which is pretty sick at that point. Like
that's pretty cool that like there was a progression, so you like kind of learn kind of how to stylize it or design it properly to not only like get more votes and stuff like that, but you knew what you were doing in curating design.
Because by the time I got to that third year I did it, I had like a stronger industrial design like background, so like I turned it into like a whole project and did like research, did some like okay, what kind of materials, what kind of like colors can I explore, and like what's the contests were always like super vague and it wasn't like a functionality thing. It was like a lifestyle sneaker, whatever, which it was open to whatever. There's some like wacky designs that people would like submit, but like what I kind of like had to use the vague descript like prompt that they gave and like build out a story and stuff like that. So
that's pretty neat. So talk about the process of, you went to college for 4 years.
I had to go an extra year because I started the major late. It's like, okay. It's one of those annoying, I went for like, I could have finished in like 4.5 probably, but they made me like take one more class that last the whole like segmented program where they just like, So, oh, I'll just pay more money for another semester, whatever.
Sure. Yeah, no, I actually went through something super similar, so I get it. When you graduated, or when you were graduating or approaching that, did you know that you wanted to like fully commit into footwear at that point?
Yeah, I did. So right when I graduated, I had an internship set up at Columbia Sportswear. So I was like there out in Portland, that's when I met you out there. Um, but before that, before I graduated, one of my TAs had like his friend. Um, I think he had gone to school with Bart at New Balance. I don't know if he's still at New Balance or not, but so I had this connection with him, and then that summer before I graduated, I was living out in Connecticut for an internship, and so I was like on the East Coast. Fine, I was like, oh, I was close to like Boston and all these like brands and stuff. So I had that connection with him, and I just like just like out of nowhere, just hit him up and was like, hey, can I like come visit New Balance or whatever, or even just for like a call or whatever. And he told me to come through, and he showed me the studio and showed me what he's working on. And like, it was awesome. And so like, I was just asking for like, advice and all that stuff. And he was like, yeah, if like you want to do the footwear thing, like it's like, don't be afraid to like, just go all in on it with your like portfolio. Like, don't like, definitely like the industrial design stuff is cool to have. But like, when he kind of said that, I was like, oh, I kind of felt that. Like, I was like, I definitely want to do the footwear thing. So I just like committed that rest of that senior year to like just footwear stuff as much as I could, because I had school stuff that I had to do.
Yeah. Talk about you mentioned a stint at Columbia Sportswear, and then you mentioned another internship in Connecticut, which I'm curious as to what it was because I grew up in Connecticut. But talk about both specifically and how you got those internships, especially coming from Indiana, you're polarizing coasts, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first question. I want to talk about like the process of how you landed those internships, but then also I definitely want to deep dive into like what your thoughts on Columbia Sportswear are, because a lot of people don't even know Columbia has footwear, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, there's so many footwear brands out there, but people think of like the top three, right? Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas, and maybe New Balance and Reebok, right? So it's like, talk about the process of getting the internship, and then also like what it was like for Columbia.
Yeah. The first internship was like, that was the summer before my senior year. And like, you had to have an internship as like credits to graduate. So if you didn't, like, then your like summer after school would still technically be like you technically still enrolled, and I would have to like get those credits. But so that internship at LeGrand, so the company's called LeGrand, and they like literally just like they do like a lot of like just commercial, and then also like in-home like electronics and stuff like that. But their main thing was like their smart home like light switches. So like literally like some of the time I was literally just designing like light switches and like interfaces of that. So I was like, this is kind of boring. I don't
Was
like
that
that.
tough?
Yeah, luckily it wasn't that long of a thing, but like, I mean, I still like learned a ton of stuff from,
So
like,
let me ask a different question. Did you take that first internship? Was it paid? And like, who paid like for your expenses to get out to the East Coast?
yeah, so that it was paid. It wasn't like paid that much at all. And like um, other than that, like I had to pay for everything. The company was actually cool. They had like they had a house that was like literally next to their office building, that they like, if there was interns, because they had a whole bunch of other, they only had one design intern, but they had a bunch of other interns for like, different areas of the business. But like it was like me and one other person, so they had this whole house that like, if you were just like an intern from out of state, you need somewhere to be. So I just like stayed in that house. And so that was kind of nice. But
Shout out to this company just having a frat house for all their interns.
it was not a frat house. It was just a little house that was just chilling right next to the building. But, yeah, so it was just me, and like at one point there was like 3 people there, but it was like, yeah. But
so you really didn't have an excuse to ever call out of work because you're living like right
oh,
at
I was literally like 2 steps on him in the parking lot. Yeah. But
and then
anyway, I got that internship from like just a connection from like a professor, because they were just like, their goal is like, and sometimes it's not to the advantage of the student. Their goal is to like look good and just get everyone hired. So sometimes people end up in like whatever job they can get. And I was like, oh, I kind of don't want to. I want to end up in something I want. Obviously, when you're graduating, you want to get anything, but it's like, sometimes you just like, you'll just take whatever's there. And then, so that's where the Columbia thing came in. But
So
yeah,
the,
I don't know
the,
if you're going to say something else. Yeah.
the Columbia process was also like a lead from a teacher?
No, so that one was a random connection. So my aunt like knew this person from back in the day from, I don't know if she like went to school or something, or just knew her from like from the area around where she lives in Indianapolis. But she was like on the ecom team at Columbia. And so my aunt, who was like, oh, well, like, I'll just connect you, and like, you can send her a portfolio to like send out to design or whoever. Cause I didn't like apply for this job. I didn't see an application or anything. And like Columbia wasn't on my radar, but then I was like, oh yeah, I'll send it out to her. She like sent it to the design team, and they were looking for an intern for that summer. And so, I got connected with the so it wasn't it was a design internship, but I was working on like the innovation team.
Right.
And yeah, so I got connected with them, interviewed with them, and they he liked my senior thesis because it was a footwear project, and it was kind of related to like outdoor stuff. And yeah, so like right after school, I just had that internship lined up.
That's awesome. Talk about what was that like, that experience like? Obviously you went out to the West Coast, another different coast.
Yeah.
And were you actually working on real-time projects, or were you working on, kind of just maybe some Illustrator drawings and stuff like that? But talk
Yeah,
about your experience, I guess.
I would help out like here and there if they needed stuff. And it was like it wasn't like intern work of like, you're just, the classic, like you're just like getting coffee for people. It was like intern work of like, oh, I need this like busy work done it's still design stuff, and it's still like Illustrator work that like I didn't know at the time. And I was like, I need to learn that. So it was cool to like do that. But it was actually, it was like a different kind of design experience, because I wasn't working with designers as much as I was with like the engineers and like the people that are like the 3D, like the guys that run the 3D printers and like the testing and all that. They have this like all their equipment testing stuff, and like some of the even like the people that are like innovating for like apparel materials. That Columbia has all these like crazy waterproof or like sun repellent type like reflector, like all the people that like kind of came up with that stuff. I was working with them, so that was pretty cool.
Nice. I mean, it sounds like it eventually was worthwhile to put on your resume at least, and gave you some experience and fast-tracked Illustrator skills at least.
Yeah, and I did have like a project. It wasn't like an actual like inline project or anything, but it was like they had kind of like created a hypothetical like brief for like an outdoor shoe, and like I had the summer to like kind of do whatever I want with that, and like I'd present it, refine it, present it again, and then work on like the tech packing, learning all that kind of stuff, and getting some like 3D prints and mock-ups made and stuff like that.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Going back, so like obviously you wrapped up that internship, you go back, you finish your senior thesis. Was it an immediate thing for you of like, I need to go get a job, or did you take some time off after graduation, or like how did you approach kind of finalizing your degree?
Yeah. So actually so after the Connecticut internship was right before senior year. And then so the Columbia one was right after I graduated. So
Okay.
that one was after I graduated. But yeah, so like after that summer internship in Connecticut, I was like, I had met with a guy at New Balance and like toured there, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, I want to do this. And then so like so what I did to like try to like land, which the project that ended up landing me the Columbia internship was, it was essentially a second senior thesis project. So like I assigned myself double the work that year, which was fine because I had a light class load because of, all those classes. I had taken everything else. I had like 2 classes left. So I had some time, and I wanted to do a footwear project for my senior thesis, and they were literally just not letting us do what we wanted that year. Because usually your senior thesis is like, pick a subject that you're passionate about and go for it. This year they were like, oh no, instead of the whole year, it's going to be a 6-month or 8. However long one semester is, not 6 months, but it was like a semester long project instead of like the full school year. And it had to be a submission for like the housewares contest in Chicago. So I was like, so I ended up designing some like odd looking sink drain like plug thing, and I was like, this is not going to cut it. So
This isn't
I
what I
did it.
want to do.
This is not what I wanted to do. And it was like, yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do 2 senior theses, like fuck it, whatever. And then I one of the other classmates, Michaela, was like, she had, I think at one point she was on like the Purdue like crew team, like rowing. And I remember her, she'd like said something about, because I was trying to come up with like some unique take on footwear, not just like design like a basketball shoe or
Right.
whatever. And she had like mentioned how like the footwear that they use in crew on like the boats is like just trash, like literally just like old sneakers basically just like bolted onto the, because they're all bolted onto the boat because the shoes have to your feet locked into the boat. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then so like she connected me with people on the team, and I like used them for research and like visited their facilities and all that stuff. It was kind of cool. And so I built this project around designing a shoe for rowing. And like, that's kind of what the, that's, I think that once my portfolio made it to Columbia, they were like, oh, that's cool. It's like a water sport take,
Totally.
like we haven't seen before. They're not, Columbia doesn't do like rowing footwear or anything, but it was related to like the like water sport footwear brief that they had kind of given me when I started.
Does that project exist online?
It's on my website. Yeah.
Oh, cool, dude. I'll have to check it out. That sounds super interesting.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It's like at the time it was like awesome. And I look back on it, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this, but it's still like a good project. It was still a cool project of like the process and stuff. But I'm like, the design's like all right, but it was more like, you can tell it's like, I want to go back and be like redesign like the actual functionality of it and stuff. But
Sure.
there's some, it was, I don't know, it was fun.
There's a time and a place for every project, right?
Yeah.
So cool. So after the Columbia internship ends, obviously post grad, right? So they didn't extend the internship into a full-time position, I'm assuming.
Nope.
So you went back to Indiana.
No, I stayed in Portland longer, and so that's when I met you out there, because so the internship ended like in August or whatever, and so I still had some like time on my lease, I think, or something. I stayed out there for like a few more months, and I'd made friends in like the internship program at Columbia, so I'd hang out with people from there. But I had a lot of time to just like, I was like, okay, well, I'm near all these like places, like Adidas is out there, Nike's out there, and then I'd found like the Pencil. I still hadn't been to Pencil, like the actual building, so I wanted to like visit there. So I was just like networking with a bunch of people, and then like me and a couple interns from Columbia that didn't get hired were doing like networking events. So, like that's the thing where we met you at that. I don't even remember what
I think it was an FDRA event.
I think so. Yeah. So I met you out there, and then yeah, so like we just kind of
That was what? That was like 2018, 19.
Yeah, I think 18. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we ended up just like hanging out with you and the people you were with there, and just like, because you were just visiting town for work, because like, you know, the Vibram office has that like little spot above Pencil.
Yep.
And then so yeah, you connected me with Joel there, and then like toured that place, and then went down to Pencil, and that was like cool because I'd never like been there or seen that the actual school that's there. But then after that, yeah, so after that, just chilling in Portland. End of the year comes up, I moved back to Indy, and then wait, I feel like I skipped something, because I was still in Portland when I got recruited for Reebok. I was like just at the end of my time in Portland.
Oh, that's so you didn't, you were obviously applying, but you got recruited to come to Reebok?
Yeah, kind of weird. From Instagram, like one of the recruiters just like was like DM me on Instagram. Was like, hey, these sketches are cool, blah blah. Like, do you want to interview for like footwear design position at Reebok? And I was like, I had to look up this person because this is like random Instagram account. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
you don't know if it's
real. And I looked it up, and oh, it seems legit. So then like set up an interview. I talked with her, and then like I think I forget which position I originally interviewed for, but then they were like, yeah, we have this apprenticeship program starting at, or it starts up in like the summer of the next year. So it was still like the end of 2018. She was like, And so she had just like hit me up on Instagram. We connected for like an interview, and then I interviewed with other designers and stuff. And so that's how I got at Reebok. But between that and Reebok, I did the New Balance pencil,
Sponsored. Yep.
yeah, pencil thing. And so then I was back in on the East Coast again for a few weeks. I came up to Lawrence, Mass, and then did that whole class, which was like pretty crazy. It was like intense, but it was cool. And then after that, back in Indy again for several months until.
So you already secured the apprenticeship before you took the pencil by New Balance?
It was really close to when I was at the New Balance thing. I forget if it was like during or like right
Gotcha.
after, but like I was in the interview process during that.
Nice.
So I think I had to step out of one of the, not step out, but like we were in the studio just working. I had to like step out into the hallway and like do this interview for Reebok.
Amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, because at the time the goal was like, oh, I gotta like do good in this New Balance thing and like get that apprentice, because they had an apprenticeship for like, they would pick like 3 or 4 footwear designers for that after the course, and like it's like the same time as the Reebok thing that starts that next summer. So I was still like fighting for that one too.
Have you ever talked to any of the other apprentices of like how they got them? Were they all DM'd on Instagram?
No, I don't think anyone else's were.
Oh, nice. They actually applied.
Yeah, they applied. So it's one of those things where like I'm interviewing and they're like, oh, can you also apply so we have your records? I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I'll do that. Cause it's like, yeah, but I don't know. I think it's just because like I had put all my work on Instagram and stuff, so that's where people would find my work and stuff. Like I didn't, because I don't know if I had seen the job posting for the Reebok thing. You know, at the time I was just focused on getting that the New Balance apprenticeship thing.
So you started the Reebok Apprenticeship summer of 2019, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How long did that apprenticeship last? And then, I mean, you're obviously still at Reebok.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it lasted. So it's like a year-long apprenticeship, which I think is really good compared to like a 3-month internship, because like you realize just like how little you actually did at an internship when you have a full year. But it was also a weird situation because halfway through the apprenticeship, you're going into 2020, and like the whole world stops and there's a coronavirus, and like now we're just working from our apartments. And now I'm like, I had missed the cool part of the apprenticeship where you can like, we had, you know, we're all working on, at some point we're all getting like our hands on like legit projects or just doing tech packing for what people or whatever. Everyone's kind of had a different experience with it. But one of the parts was like a lot of self-motivated projects, and like just kind of like what do you want to do with what do you want to see in footwear, and kind of like make your own projects. And like we had access to like the maker lab and all these like tools and resources and stuff, and now you're just like in your apartment and you don't have that part, and you're like disconnected from all the people you're trying to like get to know and learn from and all that stuff. So it was kind of a weird ending to an apprenticeship, especially when it ended. That group of us, that like we were a pretty close group. It was like 16 of us apprenticeships, like across different areas of design, like apparel, graphic, material, wow, like surface design and footwear. And so like we all got like super close, and now we're just like, it's like getting towards the end of the apprenticeship. Some people are like still kind of fighting to get like a full-time or whatever, or an extension even. And some people are like trailing off and going other places. And so it kind of just like fizzled out at the end. It kind of sucked, but it was still like a cool like apprenticeship for sure.
You mentioned that it's different from like a 3-month internship. Could you like label a few instances that like you could think about that like were major differences of something that they allowed you to do in the year-long apprenticeship versus like your other internships that you've experienced?
Yeah, so like even early on, I still wasn't, a lot of us weren't on like actual, like we didn't have our own like brief that we were designing, or necessarily a lot of it was just like assisting with like colorways or tech packs, or like you know, gathering some like materials from the material library or whatever. But like once you're there for a little bit longer, you at least from like the outside perspective, you start to see like a full season go through, and that's something you don't see at an internship, like especially in the middle of the summer. Sometimes you get plopped right in the middle of the season, you don't even see where it goes. So like we're seeing like that full process. So that was like the first time going through like seeing a whole season. And then after that, you kind of get brought in. So like that was one of the things. And then, I mean, like by the like halfway point of the apprenticeship, I got like legit projects, and I was like, it was as if I was just a like, you know, a regular designer on the team, just like I still had to fight to stay there after that 6 months was coming up.
So it's, do you want to talk about that process? Like, what do you mean by like fight for it? So like obviously the apprenticeship ends and you guys are all scrambling to try to get full-time positions, especially in COVID, right? So
Yeah.
not only does the apprenticeship end, you're also fighting against thousands of other jobs or people looking for other jobs because they either lost theirs, got terminated for whatever reasons, their previous employer. So what was that process like?
Yeah. I mean, it was like, I mean, part of the thing is like, you know, you already know, like all the apprentices that were there, like you already know, like you have what it takes to be a footwear designer. Like Reebok has you in on this thing. It's like now it's a matter of like the who knows what position these like companies are in. Like everyone's like everyone everywhere is losing money. They're getting rid of people. People are like uh, getting fired and whatnot. And so you're just like you need to figure out how to like I don't know. I mean, at that point, it's like if your work from the past had like shown like you've like proved like that you are actually like bringing value to the team that you're on, like that's gonna like stand up a lot. And like there's a ton of people at Reebok that like really pushed and like you know, like we both know Mark, like he was like incredible in helping me like learn stuff and like you know, fighting for me, like believing in me and like trying to get me to like stay on with whatever it took. And so like some of us had like at the end, so a lot of it was just like you know, continuing just working hard, like doing what you're doing. And then the other part is like letting people know like oh, I want to stay here, I want to do, because some people don't want to do footwear after this. Some people like want to do, they just happen to take a footwear design apprenticeship and they just wanted to, you know, they might go into some other industry or whatever. So like letting people know like, oh, I want to be in footwear, like this is all, like this is like the goal, and like I want to like continue working here, like working on the team. So like just like that's something for me is like being more vocal about that stuff, because I'm like quieter and stuff. So I was like, oh, I need to communicate myself, like what I want, and like really let people know. And that's something like I learned that, and that helped because like a lot of us ended up like speaking up on those things, and like they ended up were able to like keep a lot of us apprentices on for footwear at least.
That's awesome. So first, definitely shout out Mark for going to bat for people. Appreciate that. A lot of love for him. But that's amazing. So that's like a pivotal point where not only you, but other people for maybe the first time in their life have to really fight to like retain their jobs and be like, to your point, you're fairly quiet. You now have to be vocal and go to bat for yourself.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do, and this is how I've proved myself.
Yeah.
Is that like the biggest thing that you've learned from the apprenticeship, or like what's another thing, or have you ever thought about like what a key takeaway from the year-long apprenticeship was?
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely like a big thing, but for me, like the biggest thing I took away from the apprenticeship was like like learning the actual like design process. Like that was like that definitely like the other sides of like the business is something that like I learned a lot of too. But like for me, I still only had that 3 months at Columbia as like experience. And like sometimes it's like when you, like in design school, you realize you don't really learn that much of like actual work. Like we learned Illustrator, but they didn't teach us anything. Like that
Right.
was, so like literally just learning that kind of stuff. I was like, you have to use Illustrator for everything, like everything. Like, and I was like, so like learning that kind of stuff and like learning how to like actually make, or not necessarily like how to make shoes, but like learning how they are made and how like learning what's like been done and how it's being done, so you can like try to, you know, innovate on that. Because like then you kind of you have the that was like, I guess one of the things I learned that was the biggest thing is like learning how things are actually done, so you know where you can like put in like change or innovation, or like come in from a new perspective and like come up with different ideas and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's definitely critical. And it sounds like it was worthwhile, even though maybe it was in the roughest moment that a lot of us have experienced to
Yeah,
date.
I mean, it was terrifying because I was like, okay, this apprenticeship ends in like 4 months from like when COVID happened, and I was like, I was thinking back to when we had heard like a former like Purdue designer had like come through like to talk to us, and he had graduated during like what was like 2008 2009 when like the economy was just like horrible and like no one could get jobs, and I was like, are we about to go into one of those things where we're like, I'm just like out of school, I did 1 year at a job, and now I'm like entering a pandemic where no one's hiring anything. And I was like, shit, this could be terrifying. So like luckily it worked out. But
Yeah. So where are you today, I guess, right? So that was roughly a year ago now.
it was about 2 years ago now. Oh, sorry, from the end of the getting
Correct.
hired, but like since being at Reebok, like 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. But so what's your like you obviously got hired on full time, I'm
Yeah.
assuming.
Yep. Yep.
So what's your official position, team? Kind of talk about that for like a second.
Yeah. So I'm a D1 designer on the Club C team.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, when I was like on the apprenticeship, I was like on um, what was like the Zig team with like Mark and Brian and Zach and Mike and Beck and all them. But yeah, so right now I'm on Club C, and I got put on Club C like middle of 20, like the middle of 2020, and then October it was like official, like full time. I was on Club C. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Super cool. This is the part that I do want to shift a little bit to the exciting part. Obviously, throughout your, let's call it, past 3, 4, 5 years, dating back to the sneaker championships, you've been building this online presence, right? You know, through sketching and rendering of footwear, and you've transitioned pretty much to just showcasing digital sneakers through Gravity Sketch. So talk about how you got into it, and then what's like the reason why it seems that you love using that platform.
yeah. Gravity Sketch, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out Brian Ranella because he got me onto Gravity Sketch. He was like one of the first people that I had seen like using Gravity Sketch for like footwear concepts and ideating and like all that kind of stuff. And like he was the one that like introduced it to a lot of people, at least at Reebok. So like he would like show us, introduce us to it, and like kind of just put it out there like to try if you wanted to. And it was one of those things I was like, it seems pretty like intimidating because I'm like, I don't know how I feel about sitting in the office right now with this headset and like, oh, I'll just take it home, mess around with it, play with it. Like, so I brought it home, and then I was like, all right, I got to go buy my own headset now. And like, because it was just like, at the time I was trying to learn more traditional like 3D softwares, and it was just such a struggle, and it just like wasn't, uh, I don't know, it just seemed like it was spending way too much time learning something that I may not even necessarily use, because like, as a designer, you don't like necessarily use like 3D softwares and stuff like that. But like Gravity Sketch was like 3D, but it was also kind of sketchy, and it was like very intuitive, and it made sense. It just like made sense like using it. And at the beginning, you're just making like squiggles and like wacky looking shoes that don't even make sense. And I'm still kind of doing that, but but like, yeah, it was just like really fun. And it seemed like I was like able to come up with ideas I would never come up with sketching 2D, even on like an iPad or on paper or whatever. So that's kind of what like brought me into that, got me obsessed with it.
And so you bought your own, obviously, after you fell in love. Do you maybe you're able to share this, maybe you're not. Do you utilize it in your day-to-day job, or only kind of for fun now at home?
Mostly for fun, but I try to find ways to use it at work. Definitely used it for like regular like projects at work, and like try
Nice.
to throw it in where I can. Like if I need to like visualize something three-dimensionally, and I can do it pretty quick now on Gravity Sketch, and like the way that they've the thing that's cool about like Gravity Sketch is like the founders are like super interactive with people. Like obviously they want to make a better product, but they're like, oh, footwear guys are using it too, like how do you want it to use it? And like they'll literally just like be like, hey, what do you want to do with this? And like tell us and we'll try to make it. And then so they even just like since the year that I've been using it, it's like gotten so much better for like actual like modeling instead of more just kind of loose lines and forms and stuff like that. But yeah, mostly just for fun stuff that I use it for.
And so shifting or going another level deeper into the gravity sketch in digital footwear, how the hell did you figure out or find or stumble into NFTs in the world, in the metaverse, and creating these assets, pretty much your renderings, and selling them on this new age platform that we've spoken a lot offline about it and kind of what that means, and you know, why we're creating in there, trying to learn it. But like, how did you stumble into it? And then like, why did you think like, oh, footwear is a good idea?
Yeah. So I had like a few different like friends bring it up to me in like since the beginning of this year, like back in February. One of my friends kind of like sent me a link to one of those like platforms. It was like Nifty Gateway or something like that. And he was like, dude, you should like get into like digital art. People are selling their art on here digitally and like whatever. And I was, oh, that's cool. And I looked it up, and like that website like hosts like, you know, the best of the best digital artists and like famous artists, and you know, like the guy that does the cartoon work for the animation for like Rick and Morty and stuff. So I'm like, oh, this is like where famous people are selling this shit. Like I kind of just put it off. I was like, I don't even know what this is. Some of this art's like weird. I don't know what's going on here.
It's Nifty Gateway is arguably like the hype beast of the metaverse.
Yeah, you have to like be like more known and like picked to even like have your work on there. But so that was like my first introduction to it. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. And that was the first time I had heard what an NFT was. And I still don't really know what an NFT is, but I do and I don't. And then like a couple months later, Shu had hit me up. He was like, because I posted like on my like art page, it was like a drawing, but I had kind of like added like highlights to it. And then it was the way that like Procreate like has that like time lapse, it remembered it. So I was like, oh, that's a cool time lapse, because it's like glowing lines kind of like bolting through the page. And I posted it as like a video on like TikTok, and she was like, it's like, please tell me you're doing NFTs, right? And I was like, you're the second person to bring that up to me recently. Like, what is this? And then so he was the one that like sold me on the idea, and so I got into it from that. And then the footwear thing was because all this art that I was seeing was like very like concept art, like animation, like 3D stuff, and there's a lot of like collectible things. And then so I was like, okay, well I have these like these 3D models of shoes that I just made like a year ago in Gravity Sketch for no reason other than to post on Instagram. And so I was like, oh, well I could like, you know, go back to these projects, like reanimate them, like give them cooler materials and like finishes, and like create this. I was like, I had already like 10 ideas, but then I can make some more. And I was like, I'll make a whole collection of like 25, and like, that'll be it. And I'll cut off from there. And I'll just put this collection out there. And if people want them, like they'll buy them. And I was like, if I don't, I lost whatever, a few $100 trying to set up the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, I know. And we're not going to, this isn't the podcast of the time where we're going to be explaining what an NFT is. There's plenty of things you can Google about it, especially today. Back in February, when we first started talking about it, there wasn't a lot out there. And it was really a matter of consuming hours and hours from people talking about it and just trying to wrap your brain around it. And it takes really upwards of 100 hours of information to really grasp the whole system, because there's just tiers and levels, and a natural progression is like getting into cryptocurrencies, because that's how you buy and sell NFTs, is like, so you have to really understand that the blockchain and cryptocurrencies to really even understand how to sell an NFT. So there's a whole nother segment or an arm or a branch to it, which is more complicated.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't want to try to explain any of that stuff, because I'm literally still trying to. Because people ask me to like explain what's going on, and I'll start doing it, and then they'll just be looking at me like, and I'll be like, yeah, I don't know either. It's fine. We can move on.
I still remember the first time I started telling my dad about NFTs. He goes, and cryptocurrencies in general. He goes, I need to retire before this becomes a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's about
So,
accurate.
so how's that? You mentioned that you were building out a series of 25 sneaker kind of NFTs that are built in Gravity Sketch that you're rendering with different materials and things like that.
Mhm.
How has that gone for you, and kind of how far along in that process are you? And maybe even talk about like some of the things that you've learned along the way.
Yeah. So I'm like just over like the halfway point, like the 14th one, or no, 15th one will be coming out next week. Um,
Nice.
um, but yeah, so like at the beginning, like right when I had put it, the first one out there, there was like, that was like all the hype, like everyone was talking about NFTs and trying to figure it out. So like maybe there was more attention and on it and whatnot, but like I had put one up and then immediately that weekend I had like sold one for, I think it was one Ethereum or one ETH or whatever it's called. And then like I was like, wait, this is like, it didn't seem like real money. I was like, someone just paid that much for this. And then I was like, okay, this might be legit. And I had all these other designs ready to go. So I just was like, okay, I'm gonna just put one up every week and make this collection. So at the beginning, like it was great. I had like, by the time I put my fourth one out, I had sold two of them already. And I was like, okay, cool. But like literally since then, it's been like dead silent. And I was like, okay, I kind of expected this to happen. Like everything's, the talk on it's died down, whatever. And like I also kept reading like artists like first like post is like their genesis post and like that, or their first like NFT. And it's like, so there's like value in that in itself, just because like, oh, it's Joey's first post and whatever. And so once like things were like dying down, and it's been like, I don't know, like 10 weeks since like anything's really even happened or whatever from that, I was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep doing it, because like the what I've read about it is like the NFTs are basically another way people can like invest in an artist or designer that they like. And so a lot of well-known designers and artists like are able to put work out and like sell it immediately for insane amount of money. Um, but at this point I'm like, okay, well, I've only been doing this for a little bit. Like
Right.
if someone wants to invest in me, like the guy that bought my first one, like was like so excited that he was able to get it. He was like, oh, I think you're gonna be like this awesome designer, and like I love your work, and so I want to like support. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. And so I'm like, okay, well, if people in the long term want to invest in me, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I believe in myself as a designer. Like I think I'm gonna keep making better work, and that's like the goal, to keep making better and better work. So at some point, if NFTs actually like get more popular as like they're supposed, like projected to be, people will then be like, oh, well, Joey has these NFTs, and like they just been sitting there for a while. Like even all these ones I've been putting out. So I'm just like, I'll just keep putting them out for
No,
this
it's like
collection.
you build up a portfolio, right? So it's just like, me and my artwork. Like I don't sell every piece, but it builds up, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, it'll be enough to like do my own show or something like that. It's not always like. Uh, I like the way you speak about it, and the methodology, and I think a lot of frustration around that space is that people are, we're in it for the immediate sell. And then they're like, oh, well, none of my pieces have sold. And then they quickly get out, right? Versus you're like, I'm going to remain consistent and resilient, and I'm going to build up this portfolio. So eventually, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, there's going to be even more value associated to these things as your career grows.
Yeah. And like, who knows? I mean, maybe the whole NFT thing doesn't actually like in like the whole, because NFTs can get more complicated, but just like the simple, like this is like the art, or this is like the design, and you kind of just get this like collectible thing. Like who knows how like long that lasts or whatever. But that's the idea. It was like, I didn't want to like just flood my work to it, so I gave like a number and capped it off. I was like, I'll do this collection, then I'll just not do an NFT project until
And
until
I
I
can
have a reason to do it or something.
I can imagine that after 25 straight weeks, and people, just to put that in a framework, there's 52 weeks in the year, so that's 6 months of a weekly drop. I mean, I'm assuming that you're going to want to break from it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have like hit that point one week. And so I was like, okay, well, I mean, I still also had like 10 designs in the bank before going into it, because I had um, some of the stuff I don't like and some of the stuff I liked. So I was able to have enough that I still felt good about, that I could bring back from last year's gravity sketch, like exploration projects. But yeah, so like I definitely had some. I'll like make a few. So I have every week I have two more. So if I can't work on one week, I have it ready to go anyway.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of crazy. You've like sold or you've made Ethereum on these things that you just do for fun anyway. And coming full circle, it's like you used to do it just not just for like an Instagram post, but that was really the only way to highlight the work.
Mm-hmm.
Versus now it's like becomes this tangible thing that people can buy. And one thing that I know, but you didn't speak about, but like the purchaser also gets the 3D file from you as well. So like they can 3D print it. They could do whatever they want. They could create a shoe front based off of it. You know, there's so many different ideas generated off of that, the tangible asset, not alone, or let alone just the digital one.
Yeah. So the idea behind that was like, I can also give them like other stuff. Cause like, that's like the whole point of like the NFT is like, you can like attach things or like build things into like this digital contract that's happening. So like when they buy it, they can get access to this folder of stuff. And like, I give them like some additional like renderings of the design. If they wanted to like display it or print it out or whatever, hang it as artwork or whatever they want to do. Or even hang it in these digital like metaverse spaces that I'm still trying to figure out how that even works. But yeah, and then with the 3D thing is because of the conversation I had with the guy that ended up buying that first one. He was like, I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like, would you be able to like rig this shoe to like my avatar in a game? And I was like, yeah, like I'm putting like the 3D model with it. And he was like, oh sweet, like I'll be able to like so like they're digital like avatar people in these different worlds, like they can be wearing these sneakers. And I'm like, okay, I get that. Cause like I'm thinking, all these video games like Fortnite and NBA 2K, and like people are like customizing their shoes in there, and like in Fortnite getting like whole like skins and outfits and stuff. And people buy that stuff already, but it's like, oh, if I can have this like just one of one piece that like someone could buy and then just like wear this like sneaker around like digitally, I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, the possibilities are endless. And I think we're still really at its infancy of this really blowing up into becoming a commercial idea, and how companies and people apply it to their day-to-day lives. So I think we're going to learn a lot over the next 2, 3, 5 years, but we'll figure it out. I did want to touch upon something you mentioned kind of the other week, where you were just like kind of a little burnt out and you didn't really have it in you to do it. And you're similar to I am, I think maybe in a little bit quieter of a way, but you do a lot, right? So you're doing all these, digital creations. You obviously have your full-time job. I know that you do these crazy pen artworks and sketches, like physical sketches with ballpoint pen. You're obviously trying to create content, which a lot of people think is just like take a photo and put it up, but like content, like to really storytell and make it look right, it's a lot of time and energy. And so like then you have different platforms of you mentioned Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Clubhouse. Like, how are you dealing with all of that? Obviously, you just I think a few months ago you just moved back to Boston. Obviously now that COVID's kind of slowly residing, but talk about that creative burnout, because I think a lot of us and a lot of the listeners of this podcast actually probably go through something similar.
Yeah, like I mean, I've been just like taking breaks of like working on stuff, because I was like, I just like I'm not even gonna if I had made a new NFT like the last like a new design for an NFT like the last week or last 2 weeks when I had texted you, it was just gonna be some like BS thing that I just put together and gravity sketch and made it try to look cool or whatever. It would have been like half-assed work. And so luckily I had built out other projects that I can like slide in, because I had like a bank of projects. But yeah, I was just like, I had to like just take a break. And so like the burnout was because of like a lot of those types of things, and making all the videos for trying to translate all this stuff to like how it can post on like TikTok versus Twitter versus Instagram and stuff like that. So I've kind of like also just taken a break from those, and like I'm like, okay, well, it's not like I need to be posting this stuff like every week or whatever. Like it'll be there when it's there. It's like whatever. I'm not trying to like just flood the TikTok feed with like a bunch of random animations of spinning shoes that make no sense. I was like, because I make the content with like the VR, like recording myself doing the VR and stuff to make it like look cool. And I was like, which that's a whole like setup and annoying to record. But yeah. So anyway, back to the question though. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just realize when I'm getting too busy, and like if there's like a busier phase of like work, because like that, in design, like you get these waves of like, okay, well, you like have to be creative now because this is part of the season where you're designing and new stuff and whatever. So like it was getting to like one of those points of like super busy there. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to like burn out on two different things. I'm just gonna like take a break from this side stuff right now and focus on the work I have to do. But yeah, I don't know, just like recognizing that, like I'm like, okay, this is gonna get worse if I just don't stop. So I got to stop a lot of these things for now. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really important, just like being self-aware enough to take that step back. I'm very similar in that sense of like understanding that, okay, I've taken on too much. I'm inefficient in all things right now. Something's got to go, so I could hone in on one or two, get those things done, and then go back to it when time frees up. So it's definitely important. So obviously you have another 10 weeks left or so of the NFTs. Is there anything else that like you're working on the side that you're excited about this summer even, or you taking some more time off, or anything that you're working on coming out in the future that you want to share with people?
Man, no, like I mean that stuff alone keeps me busy enough frequently. So like I don't really have anything else that I'm working on like that. Like I've also taken a break from the pen drawing stuff too, because that's just like I don't even know if I'm enjoying that stuff anymore because it's so detailed and like just time, like literally just drawing this back and forth till like the thing appears on the page. But but like yeah. So I'm like, okay, like I still like drawing and stuff like that, but like these big thing like pen drawings, I'm like that are just recreating an image. I'm like, maybe I'll get back into that when I have a better and more creative idea than just like kind of copying an image and redrawing it. But yeah, other than that, like I don't think I have anything else. Just like the NFTs are gonna keep going for another 10 weeks, and then I mean, this is like nothing that like I can actually like speak on, but like the like soon, like this summer and later on this year is like my first projects that I got to work on Reebok will start coming out. So that'll be cool. Like I've never, yeah, because of like that apprenticeship and like that time of like not really working on real projects and the long-term timelines of these things. It's like 2 years into working at Reebok, I'm finally starting to see some stuff come out. So that'll be cool.
It's arguably one of the most incredible feelings
yeah.
when you finally see your shit hit the mass production markets or on a shelf. So that'll be exciting. I can't wait to see what you share with us. Before I ask you the last question, like where can people find you?
My Instagram mostly is like it's Joey_Khamis_design. So yeah, and it should be that on like that and like Twitter, which I'm like new. I've been on Twitter for a while, but I deleted it for so long because I was like, I hate this and it's useless. But now the whole NFT thing brought me back on it. So like Twitter, back on that. Yeah, I mean my Instagram pretty much links to anything, like links to my website is like joeykhamisdesign.com. Yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Cool. And so the last question I'll give you is if you had to give one piece of advice or any sort of information that you want to share with people just to better inform somebody about if they're trying to get into footwear or if they're trying to get into NFTs or as a creator, kind of something that you've learned along the way or anything of that realm that can really help people. I think there's always good value add there.
Yeah, I think the advice would be to just like, if there's something you want to do or and you've never even like touched on that area or whatever, like for the NFTs, for example, it's like, you got to just like dive fully into it, or at least like do something in it and like get the ball rolling in it. You can't just like keep thinking about doing it or thinking about starting one or just talking about doing it. Cause like that's like with the NFT thing, I was like, okay, well, I saw like where this could go. And I was like, but it was so overwhelming of how many things there is to learn. And like with footwear too, there's so much stuff you don't even know you have to know how to do and whatever. So like it's overwhelming, but if you just like get started in that, just like little by little, just like start doing one thing in it or learning or reading or watching a video about it. Just getting a start, just doing something that's heading in that direction to get, because then if you go in it all in, sometimes like that's, it could be like overwhelming and you might just like never do it because if you think about it that way, I think.
So dial it back and just take one step forward.
At the beginning, yeah. But then once you know what you want to do, then you can go hard.
Oh yeah. No, I love that a lot. Well, Joey, thanks for joining us on episode 39 of An Untold Narrative. This was super cool and informative, and I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.